I'm not a Ubisoft hater. I love all the Watch Dogs games. Yes, even Legion. I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Ghost Recon Wildlands. Plus Far Cry's 3 through 6. I've been less impressed with other games, but still, third-person open worlds are my jam. I was hugely excited for Star Wars Outlaws. Open world? Yeah. Han Solo type instead of the overused Jedi? Absolutely. Different planets, blaster skirmishes, speeders, freaking sign me up. But the reviews, while generally positive, lacked enthusiasm. They described the mechanics, dropping guns, can't use found vehicles, can't shoot from the speeder, etc. And that was enough to make me hold on to my $70. Recent reports stated Outlaws only sold 1 million copies in its release month. Not good. Other reports said Ubisoft was hoping for 7.5 million sales by March of 2025, but have adjusted expectations to 5 million. Why is no one buying it? Here's what would have gotten me to throw my money down on day one. It doesn't come down to the game's story, characters, dialogue, lip sync issues, or bugs, which were present but tolerably sparse for me. Game performance was good after a shut-off NVIDIA RTX Direct Lighting. Graphics were excellent because Ubisoft never disappoints on world building. No, the Star Wars game that would have gotten my money on day one, and maybe a few million others, would have had better mechanics. Much better. Minor spoilers may follow. Okay, someone says they're making an open-world Star Wars game. Where's the first place my mind goes? Finally, I get to drive all those cool Star Wars vehicles. Land speeders, flash speeders, speeder bikes, V-35s, X-34s, bark speeders, swoops, ATSTs, air speeders, snow speeders, wheel bikes, desert skiffs. I have it on good authority you can get T-16s on Tatooine. That's gonna rock. Wait, what? Just the one speeder? Why? The only drivable vehicle is Kay's speeder. I mean, this is Ubisoft we're talking about. Makers of Assassin's Creed Odyssey that gave us big boats, little boats, horses, other horses. In the Watch Dogs games, you can drive every vehicle from little scooters to fire engines. Ghost Recon Wildlands lets you drive all the cars, plus choppers, planes, and boats. That killed my enthusiasm for this game, and I'm probably not alone. The one speeder can be upgraded. Engine, handling, armor, landing repulsor, speed boost, jump boost, and enhanced repulsor, so Kay can ride over deep water. Typical video game leveling. But none of it makes Traversal especially interesting. You know what would have been more interesting? Being able to drive that, and that. That looks fun to drive. And that, and that, and that, and that, and that. That looks cool. That looks fun. I wonder how that handles. And that, and that, and that, and that. I guess now's a good time to talk about combat. By now everyone knows you cannot shoot Kay's pistol while mounted on her speeder, but you can be attacked by pirates and Imperials on speeders, plus any pedestrian with a gun, but you can't shoot back. That is until your adrenaline meter charges, and once triggered, freezes time while you select your politely patient targets, and then watch as the game goes on autopilot, killing all your enemies for you. This is the worst mechanic in the game. It's one of the worst mechanics in gaming ever. It actively sucks. It's not like Red Dead 2 where you can pick body parts. It's not like Watch Dogs or Days Gone where you have a limited time to pick off as many foes as you can headshot. No, it's just select the person or speeder and the game does the rest. And if the game doesn't do it, then you, the player, will do nothing because there is no way you're shooting from your mount.
Where's that get fun?
Are you kidding?
In an interview with Games Radar, lead game designer Friedrich Thailander shared, "What we see in the Star Wars movies is speeder chases. You being chased. We see you have to dodge and get away, then try to explode their speeder or make them crash into a tree, especially when we look back at the original trilogy. We wanted to make a mechanic that made you experience chases, rather than having you feel as if you could ride in and assault people from the speeder. First of all, if I want to ride in and assault people, You need to give me that freedom.
It's my decision, not yours.
Secondly, what are you talking about? In the first 6 Star Wars movies, there's basically one speeder bike scene you can draw from. And who's doing the chasing?
Over there! Two more of them!
I see them! Wait, Leia! Hey, wait!
Luke and Leia. They're not being chased. They are the chasers. And while neither Luke or Leia fire blasters while mounted, a scout trooper does. So please, make the case that Kves isn't as skilled as a scout trooper. The other part of this decision is just that if we made it so you can free aim and shoot from the speeder, then we'd also have to make the speeder drive nicely when you're not looking forward, which is actually a really hard thing to do when you're trying to maximize speed, jumping, and off-road capabilities. And there, I believe, is the real reason we don't have mounted combat. They couldn't figure it out. It's too hard. Yeah, development's hard. But you know what?
That's the job.
Yeah, that's the job. Figure it out. Figure out how to make the game fun, not how to punt and blame it on the movies. And speaking of the movies, if you're claiming to draw inspiration from them, what about
Quick, jam their comm link, center switch!
a comm jamming mechanic, a jump to another speeder mechanic, eject the driver mechanic, front-mounted blaster? The Skywalker maneuver is doable, but with no front-mounted blaster, there's no reason to try it. And altitude control. Yeah, that's a thing. Speeders are equipped with repulsor lifts, and that enables the pilot to fly as high as 10 meters. Where's the altitude upgrade? Side ramming is actually in the game, or rather a jink mechanic, but it's intended for evasion and doesn't work for combat. How about an entanglement mechanic? You want to pull from the movies? There are some ideas for you wrapped up in a 3-minute bow. But you know who could figure out mounted shooting? Guerrilla, CD Projekt Red, Ubisoft Quebec, Ubisoft Toronto, and Massive Entertainment. Wait, what? Oh, that's right. The same studio that made Outlaws also made Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Oh look, mounted shooting. Maybe walk down the hall and ask them how they did it. So when I came upon enemies and I was mounted, I just started doing donuts or figure eights until my adrenaline was filled up, and then...
Oh, come on!
Great job there.
That worked!
It did not. You can't even ram enemy pedestrians in your speeder. Do any other games have an opinion on this? Death Stranding? Watch Dogs? Sleeping Dogs? Mad Max? Noted. K's speeder mechanics are basically missing. Adrenaline also works on foot. In any firefight, really. It builds up, then you trigger it. Let the game play it for you. Compare this to Horizon Zero Dawn, Watch Dogs,
Hey, do not get in my face!
Days Gone, Kena Bridge of Spirits, that all have a time slow, but none of them nearly pause the game and just let you select victims. In these, it's a tool, not a finisher.
That worked!
It did not. Adrenaline being one of the few mechanics the game has, if we can call it that, there are tons of ways to boost adrenaline gain, so you can just give up and let the game play itself more often. Like these charms that all give adrenaline buffs, faster buildup or delayed cooldown. And these clothing articles that do the same thing. And these skill unlocks. So if you really want the game to play itself a lot, there's a loadout for that. Kay can pick up dropped weapons and use them in battle. She can also tell Nyx to fetch weapons while she stays in cover.
Nyx, the blaster.
That's cool. I dig that.
This'll work.
She can also run, roll, and slide while retaining her gun. By now everyone knows, at launch, she would drop it for just about everything else, including using a ladder, mounting her speeder, entering a vent, opening a chest, grappling, using her electro binoculars, and talking to an NPC.
We pay the Hutts for protection.
So not only were found weapons only good until their magazine was spent, but they were also only good until Kay tried taking them anywhere. A November update now lets Kay retain found weapons while she climbs, rides, rummages, and uses binoculars. Before the recent update, the only way to get a gun up a ladder was to have Nix fetch it,
Get that blaster.
because he could carry them up ladders. But the problems aren't limited to just dropping found guns. After surviving a firefight, look around and you'll find the ground littered with bodies and weapons. But only one or two of them will be recoverable. Yeah, enemies will drop weapons all the time that can't be picked up and used. I'm guessing like 10% of weapons dropped can actually be picked up. That kind of thing just reminds me that I'm not in a Star Wars world, but in a Star Wars game, with arbitrary restrictions, because that's how they chose to create balance. You have stealth takedowns. If you mess up a stealth takedown, you can punch someone until they pass out. And that's the extent of melee combat. There's no disarm move, no kick, no combos, no block, no back and forth. Like mounted combat, melee combat barely exists. And just as a side note, why don't we have better takedown animations for helmeted enemies? Like, rip off the helmet and beat them with it instead of smashing Kay's fists into their headgear. Just saying. So while you're busy not picking up guns that can't be picked up, Kay's blaster can be upgraded to become every weapon. Kay's blaster has 3 modes: Plasma, Ion, and Power. Plasma is the red bolt you expect from a blaster. Ion is used for taking out droids, disorienting the living, and charging electrical nodes. More on that later. Power is basically grenade mode. Alright, I'll go with it. It's a little unrealistic, even for Star Wars, but I can't complain that it's a bad game mechanic. It's functional and diverse, which is more than I can say for melee or speeder combat. Now, within each of these 3 modes, there are sub-modes. Plasma can shoot fast and light, slow and heavy, and full auto, which is pretty useless at range. The Ion mode has 2 variants, normal and shotgun, wider spread but less range. Power mode has 3 variants. Bolt has a charge time and area damage. Blast is basically the grenade setting. And Pulse is kind of like Bolt, but you can charge it longer for more damage? I don't know, I barely used it. The problem is once you select one of these sub-modes, you can't change it during gameplay. You have to go back into the menus to change it. Probably because the sub-modes are locked during conflict, which again is just one more thing the game won't let you do. This is one of those times when a weapon wheel would have just made a lot of sense. Let's look at foot traversal. Kay has a run, a slide, a crouch, and a dodge roll. She can also mantle, which seems cool at first until you realize it only activates on certain ledges. Other ledges, which may look the same or even be lower than the climbable ledges, cannot be mantled. This turns a challenging terrain into an impossible terrain. If the developers intend for Kay to reach a place, you have to find the one way they intended for her to reach it. And you're not climbing anything if they didn't intend for it to be climbed. It's worth noting, some cliffs can be hung from, and while I could find no reason or benefit, you can do it. What the game needed was this ability on every reachable rock. Kay also has a nice vault, which again, sometimes doesn't work. I'm pressing the button here, she's just not doing it. Kay is an adept climber, when the developers place specific climbing surfaces in her path, and there are quite a few climbing sections. And just like in God of War, Horizon, Remember Me, and Tomb Raider, it sucks. Special climbing rocks, special climbing metal, and plenty of yellow paint. By the way, I have no problem with yellow paint. If you're gonna phone it in and make me traverse your dumbass linear climbing segment, you damn well better show me where it is. If you disagree and hate yellow paint, Outlaws lets you disable it in Explorer mode for a more immersive experience. But for the love of midichlorians, can we please shoot this horse? I'm tired of climbing your uncreative, monotonous, boring linear paths. Now, adrenaline may be the worst mechanic in the game, but the most underdeveloped is the grappling hook. The grapple in Outlaws exists for exactly 2 reasons. 1, to swing across chasms above which there is a convenient anchor and button prompt. The other is to ascend or descend walls, at the top of which is a pulley or branch with accompanying button prompt to latch onto. That's it. Outside of those 2 situations, the grapple does not exist. There are so many things in this game that can't be climbed. You know what might be a useful tool here? A grappling hook.
Oh, look, you got one!
Yeah, you've got one. This was a great opportunity to make this part of the game mechanics. A system where every ledge, every rooftop, every branch has the potential to become a climbing anchor. Wow, this game could really open up. And since we are looking at the movies for inspiration, what if we use the grapple to scale any building? Tie someone up. Hey, that would have been cool. Bind their hands. What if we could ascend any flat or smooth overhang? Or would that be a magnetic attachment? Great, make that an upgrade. What if we could clothesline a scout trooper? Or drag someone around? Or save yourself from a fatal fall? I definitely could have used that a few times. Looking outside Star Wars, what if we could use the grapple to rip parts off enemy speeders? Or pull the drivers from their vehicles like Mad Max had? What about swinging down for a pendulum attack? Or a drop attack? Or using the grapple to span a gap? Look at all the ideas that can be drawn from a grappling hook. That's the promise of an open world. When you create an open world, it's not just a polygon where you can go north, south, east, or west. It's a world of challenges and tools to overcome them. I don't think any game did this better than Death Stranding or maybe Tears of the Kingdom, but I digress. If your game's main tool is press interact button here, you failed. It's just a slow QuickTime event. A slow time event, I guess. For it to be a good mechanic, it should enable the player to use it creatively, just like walking or shooting. I understand that creating a climbing system based on physics and anchors is difficult. You not only have to create the system, but then debug it so it doesn't spaz out during gameplay. And then you have to design all your maps and locations around the possibility that someone might try to climb it because you gave them the tools to do that. And that's a lot harder than slapping down a climbable wall or a predefined grapple anchor. But you know what?
That's the job.
Yeah, that's the job. You want to sell 7.5 million copies? You have to think past 10-year-old climbing mechanics and offer something I can't get for $5 on a Steam sale. Maybe cut back on the blaster's abilities and let Kay carry a scavenged gun or 2. Maybe let Kay store some guns on her speeder that she can switch out. Maybe make all the fallen weapons usable. It would be really cool if Kay could claim found vehicles. Players could choose one they like and upgrade it. Different speeders could have different attributes. Some could have larger cargo capacity for extra guns, health vials, and grenades, while others might be faster or can take more damage, have mounted guns, turn better, fly higher, have more upgrade slots, etc. Wouldn't it be awesome if you could really customize your ride? And if you decide to swap it out for a different chassis, you can remove all the upgrades from the old one for reuse. That's a game that would get people talking. If it's an open world, it has to have stealth. Being outnumbered means tipping the scales to your advantage in other ways, and quietly eliminating the enemy is a mandatory mechanic. Even if you don't use it, other players will. Outlaw's stealth mechanics are probably the most fleshed out in the game. Kay can crouch to walk quietly, decreasing her detectability. Normal enemies can be taken down with a button from behind and from corners. Acquiring the electroshock prod enables one-click takedowns of droids and brutes. Standard stuff. Kay can lure enemies to her position with a whistle and KO them. Nix can be directed to distract enemies.
It's showtime, buddy.
So Kay can slip past them or KO them while their back is turned. which is no different from the standard stone toss from other stealth games. It may be rote, but you have to include the basics. The problem is, Outlaws doesn't branch out much from the basics. Nix can be directed to face-hug an enemy, immobilizing them for a few seconds, and if they have a buddy, that buddy will be distracted by the assault, allowing K to KO the distracted one, followed by the one trying to peel Nix off his face, for a double takedown. This tactic will get reused a lot. Rounding out the 8 other modes her blaster has, it can also stun, which is a permanent ranged KO. But it has a long cooldown. Doing takedowns greatly decreases the cooldown. If K's stun is charged, triple takedowns are possible without raising alarm. A learnable skill adds the option for Nix to trigger a grenade if an enemy carries one.
Take him down, Nix.
It's a little OP, but after playing the game for as long as I did before getting it, it was a welcome change of pace. All in all, it just feels like stealth light. There's no moving or hiding bodies, something else the grapple could have been used for, and there's no disguises, a feature Star Wars stories have returned to multiple times. That's a Star Wars thing, infiltrate using disguises. There's a lot of fun that could be done with that. Who now sees you as an enemy or a friend? Who are your superiors or subordinates? What access does your uniform get? What behaviors are permitted or not permitted in different uniforms? No doubt answering those questions and creating a fun system that provides the player both challenges and options will require work, and the answers might not be easy, but
that's the job.
Or screw it, just roll out the same stealth tropes you've used for the last 15 years. Now, before you tell me there is a disguise used in the late game, I know. It's part of the story, it's mostly in cutscenes, and there are no mechanics associated with it, so no, it does not count. Unfortunately, ND5 is completely missing from the game. He exists to provide occasional exposition over comms.
I've seen this before with BX units.
Or worthless commentary.
That didn't work, Kay.
But he does not enter into the gameplay at all, until the end when he malfunctions and tries to kill Kay. How much might his presence have changed gameplay if he was commandable the way Nix is? Could you remote pilot him in to sabotage defenses? Could you use him as a portable shield? Or a weapon caddy? Could you command him to snipe for double kills? Could he fly the Trailblazer while Kay operates the turret? Might have been interesting to explore some interactive ideas for ND5, but he's far less involved than the poster art implies. Story quests are usually pretty good, in that you'll be infiltrating somebody's base and most of the time you can sneak or storm. I found the Imperial bases particularly fun. They're laid out well, with multiple paths to various areas, and plenty of troops to KO or dispatch. Side quests can be fun too. Some have Kay biking through the outback to deliver a thing before time runs out, which would be more fun if the speeder combat existed, at all. But there are a lot of bad quests too, like fetch quests, on steroids. One main story quest placed a map locator at this cantina where I had to eavesdrop on a conversation.
He practically lives in our land today.
There's no gameplay involved. This then placed a map locator inside the Crimson Dawn territory. I was on good terms with him, so I just walked most of it. The final 20 meters or so in that area is always off limits, so I had to stealth that part. I reached the guy, and triggered another conversation, which ended with a holocall telling me to acquire an Imperial code sequencer. This placed a map locator at an Imperial checkpoint. There's the Imperial code sequencer. Then I had to raid an Imperial base. Good times. But what a clunky start. Go here, press interact. Go there, interact again. There's a side quest involving a guy wanting to know why his father racing table is losing money. Pay attention to how little gameplay is involved. First, Kay has to ask around at a betting table. There's only one NPC with a white dot over his head, so that's who you talk to. This leads me to a general area on the map where I should check the repair shop. I'm not sure if I found the right place until I see an NPC with a white dot overhead. That conversation leads me.
It is inside the sabacc parlor.
So I go to the sabacc parlor and eavesdrop on a conversation. The person I'm stalking leaves but has a datapad.
I think we need that data pad, Nix.
I follow the NPC and tell Nix
Nix, there.
to pickpocket the item. The datapad has info about fixed races and a meetup outside the city. So I go to the place indicated on the map and stand on the rock. Nothing happens. I walk away and return to the rock, standing slightly closer to the top. That triggers the cutscene.
There's Weirla, but who is she talking to? I better get closer.
I'm not even sure if this is a restricted area, but better safe than sorry. I go to the designated spot and eavesdrop through the door.
You have not been careful.
Apology accepted, I guess. The game tells me to leave the area. Once out, Kay contacts the quest giver.
The pikes are behind it.
The Pikes run a crystal mine here on Akiva.
Off to the crystal mine. I'm on good terms with the Pikes, so I just walk right in.
Data pad from Kanto's gotta be around the landing pad.
I find the datapad with the fixed race info. I learned that jockey Olin Renz will win the next race. Now I have to test the data by betting on the fathier ridden by Olin Renz.
What do you know? The intel was right.
On the way back to the quest giver, a competing party tells me,
We want you to keep him in the dark. You will be rewarded.
speaking to the quest giver, I had to choose to tell him the truth or lie. At the time, I was wanting to boost my reputation with the Pikes, so I lied.
The trail went cold. If there was any evidence, it's gone now.
I lost a lot of points with the Huts and gained an excellent rating with the Pikes. Quest complete. Having reached excellent with the Pikes, I went to a Pike vendor and bought the rare upgrade part for the blaster that he wouldn't sell me unless I had an excellent rating with the Pikes. That was a pretty lengthy quest, wasn't it? What did I do? I went to a bunch of map designations and triggered Interact. I stealth dropped 2 guys, bet on a fixed race, and chose to lie to the quest giver. Someone tell me what was the creative or alternate way I could have pulled off this mission. That may have been interesting for Kay, but I was bored. To get a certain ship upgrade, I spoke with an NPC in Mos Eisley. They sent me to talk with an NPC in Bestine. The Bestine NPC told me to talk to a Jawa in the Dune Sea. A Jawa I'd already met, by the way, because his sandcrawler is a permanent fixture on the map and I'd already been there. He sends me to a dead Sarlacc on a fetch quest. I kill 5 guarding the Sarlacc, jump inside, wander a linear path with some climbing, find the thing, and climb out. Return to the Jawa, and earn my ship upgrade. Except for those 5 guys I killed, the rest was just walking, riding, climbing, and triggering conversations. Quests where Kay infiltrates bases are better. But why are there quests like these in the game at all? I mean, it's not unique to Star Wars Outlaws. Lots of games are similarly bland. They're created from a writing or world-building perspective, it's just that they're nearly devoid of gameplay. I don't get to be creative. Witcher 3 did this a lot. Why haven't we moved on from this crap? Eventually, I just rejected side quests.
Find a protocol droid. I'm busy.
Good choice, Kay. One of the flexes of Outlaws leading up to its release was the Syndicate system. 4 syndicates: Pikes, Crimson Dawn, the Huts, and the Ashiga. I tried being bad, but the game's just not designed for it, because there are hard-to-find materials for upgrading your ship, bike, and blaster. Not only do these things cost more if a group dislikes you, but faction-owned stores will gate some purchases unless you have an excellent rating with them. Plus, there are perks and rewards for maxing out reputation points with each faction, including wearables with passive buffs. If a player wants those items, or not to be attacked inside clan territories, they have to do the jobs to increase reputation. Fetch quests, planting bugs, mini-raids, etc. Here's me stealing a datapad.
Nix, come on. All right.
You didn't screw it up. Here's your pay.
Maxing reputation with all 4 clans is possible, but a little frustrating because quests will frequently force a choice to favor one group and anger the other. If you have a bad reputation, you'll be fighting more often, which might actually make the game more interesting, but you'll never get the faction gear and gated upgrade parts. Maintaining reputation is mostly a chore, as many of the story quests will force you to piss someone off. Maps are littered with crates to loot, and aside from some crafting materials found in abundance everywhere, the thing they mostly dispense are skins. Skins for the speeder. Skins for the ship, skins for your gun, skins for your thrusters, doodads that hang from your bike handles, and ship controls that I almost never saw. Once I'd upgraded my ship and speeder, at least as much as I cared to, I stopped looting chests.
Look at this.
Because the rewards weren't worth it. Ubisoft has been criticized for its marker-laden maps, and while Outlaws does little to change that reputation, it does try. Instead of providing pinpoint locations, now many quests only provide a general area, and the player must search the area and locate the person or thing before they can continue the quest. You'll know when you've found it because it has a white dot hovering over it. But until then, it could be anywhere, and I hate this. Imagine you invite your friends over for a game of Star Wars Monopoly. You're all sitting at the table and someone asks, "Where's the game?" And you say, "Ah, that's the fun part. I've hidden the game. But don't worry, it's somewhere in my house. We just want to play the game." Now, I understand, but you have to find it first. It makes it more fun, right? No. Again, Outlaws isn't the only game that does this, but it needs to be the last. It's a terrible idea and completely misses the point of why Elden Ring was so praised for its map. Wandering and encountering something unexpected because it wasn't labeled on the map? Good. Being told there's something but you have to find it? Bad. Being told there's something but you have to find it in this confined space? Less bad. Being told the game won't progress until you've found it? Forget it. Bad again. Outlaws has a lot of quests that just halt until you find the thing. And while it's not usually well hidden, you can still walk right past it and miss it if you come at it from the wrong angle. This doesn't qualify as a minigame, or a mechanic, or anything. It's just a pace killer, and it's frustrating. Outlaws also features poorly integrated Metroidvania crap. Again, not the only game to do this. Looking at you, Horizon Forbidden West and Tomb Raider. In the first planet Kay arrives on, this obstacle can be found. Inside is a chest. I don't remember what's inside it, but it's probably not worth it. Nevertheless, the game tells you need a fusion cutter to get through. Remember, this is the first planet. Whatever you do, don't go looking for a fusion cutter, because the only fusion cutter on 5 planets is owned by one NPC who only gives it to you as part of a late-game story mission. Only after can you go back to all those places and cut through the grates and retrieve what's inside. In another example, there are rock walls that can be blasted, revealing similar hidden treasures, rare upgrade materials, and skins. Now, if perchance someone left a grenade launcher lying around, maybe you could blast the rock with that. Nope, no dice. Maybe you picked up an explosive container, brought it with you on your bike, and placed it at the base of the brittle rock and detonated it. Are you kidding me? No, there's no mechanic for picking up and transporting explosive containers. The only way to blast them is with the Power Blaster module upgrade. Alright, fine. What do I have to do to get that? Nothing. It's just dumped in your lap after completing the right story quest. And you'll get it no sooner, because you are only going to play this game, solve these puzzles, and traverse these maps in the exact way we, the developers, intended. You will play the game our way. Shortly after crash landing on Toshara, I noticed a camp and tried to explore it. I was met with, "Return to quest area," and a countdown. If I didn't return in time, the screen would fade to black and the game would revert to the last autosave. This would become a thing. It could strike at any time during a quest. One time I was here and needed to go here next. I got turned around and went this way instead. Realizing my mistake, I decided to just go around this rock formation, taking the long way, when this happened. One time I was battling a cruiser. What the heck? How did I just leave the quest area while shooting at the quest objective? And one time it happened in the middle of a shootout in an Imperial hangar bay. That's right, half the hangar bay was outside the quest area. Most games will just leave the locator on the map until you finally decide to continue the mission. Why are there bordered quest areas? Somewhat related to frequent strolls outside the quest area are the many times I ignorantly walked into a restricted area. See, the way I was playing, I was on good terms with everyone.
It is good to see you, K-Bass.
So I could just walk into faction territories without raising alarm or being shot at. But there are areas within those areas that are always off limits. You always have to shoot or stealth those areas. Here's how I knew I'd entered one of those areas. Surprise! Yeah, everyone gets upset. And I had about 1 second to haul ass in the opposite direction or start shooting, if shooting is allowed in that area. If not, I just got arrested.
Hands behind your head.
Hey, no hard feelings.
Notice how here I tried to leave, but went into fast talk mode. Couldn't get away, and got arrested.
Hope it was worth it.
Fine, you got me.
Even though the arrestor was like 3 meters away, just for wandering into an unmarked, restricted area. And don't tell me it's obvious because there were guards there. There are guards everywhere, but not here. No guards at this wide open door. Yep, that's a restricted countertop, which is why I learned to dodge roll backwards every time I wandered into one. And I saved the worst for last. Everything in space sucks. There's nothing interesting or creative about gathering resources, but the space combat is the worst. I gave Starfield crap for having space combat on par with 1983's Star Wars arcade game. Surely, Ubisoft, the game company that developed Black Flag and Odyssey's naval combat, would come up with a better space combat system than that, right? No, it's just that, but worse. Let's go again to the movies. The first one. Can anyone think of a scene where a scoundrel had a space battle in his freighter-like smuggling ship and used something other than forward-facing guns to defend it? Anyone? Put your hand down, it was rhetorical. A ship with forward-only guns makes sense if you're an X-Wing or A-Wing. You know, a fighter. But the Trailblazer is a small freighter. It's slow and bulky, and yet the gameplay insists on using it as a fighter. Ships are almost impossible to hit, so you have to engage pursuit mode, aka aim for me mode. Then the ship reticle will lock on to the target, but the player still has to micro-adjust to hit the hit me here node and chip away at the enemy ship while also managing overheating guns. All this while the other 20 fighters pummel you from all the other directions. There's no strafing mechanic, only the same dodge jink that the speeder has. There's no reverse, no levitate, no drop. You have all the flight controls of a paper airplane. Later you can unlock a loop-de-loop and jink with flare, but I never did because your space combat. Your enemies, almost always out of frame, are indicated by these red chevrons. I swear there could be as many as 20 at one time, but I never actually counted. Torpedoes are much more effective than guns, but have a cooldown. If you pick a triangle and attempt to pursue the ship it's pointing to, it may eventually come into frame, at which point the ship will actually be harder to see than when it was out of frame. If spotted, now's the time to engage pursuit mode. Half the time the enemy ship will be angled such that it will whiz by, so a shot can't be made and you'll have to reacquire. All while the other ships you didn't engage are firing at you.
We lost shields!
Despite the bad mechanics, poor maneuverability, front-facing only guns, and nearly invisible ships, it's survivable. Even possible to win, because the game is balanced for it. Your ship has regenerating shields, a missile deflector with a long cooldown, jammers, heat sinks, and can even repair itself. But it's not fun. A game is fun when the tools enable the player to make creative choices. Not when the odds are ridiculously stacked against you, but they balanced it out so you usually pull through. I hated space combat so much that when optional quests for resources or reputation points became available, if they were in space, I just wouldn't do them. The Trailblazer should have had an aimable turret. Players can drive in one direction and shoot in another. We've been doing it for years. Second, creating scenarios where K is taking on 10 to 15 fighters is just stupid. Space scenarios should be designed around the capabilities of a small freighter, taking on 2 to 4 fighters. Her ship needs to be able to strafe and move on all axes, and her ship needs to be comparably maneuverable to enemy ships. Docking with and boarding larger ships could have been really fun. Something Starfield did do, by the way. What about flying in and out of asteroids or debris fields to lose pursuing ships, or hiding in the blind spots of capital ships? What about flying inside a capital ship to blow it up, or stealing an enemy ship to infiltrate undetected? No, we get a freighter acting like a fighter and failing at it.
They hit us!
The game just feels like it was made for kids. Oh no, a locked gate. How will I ever find a way in? Oh, never mind. Somebody put climbing bars right here. I guess I'll just use these. Oh, how will I ever get this bridge to extend? Oh, right. Just have Nix open the door and I'll shoot the electric node. Over. And over. And over. Hey, a fun puzzle where you follow the beeps until you find the thing. And the eating minigame, which is, is there anything that makes this game feel more like a kid's game than a series of no-fail quick-time events? Fortunately, they can be shut off, which I did. Almost everything that could have been interesting has been stripped away for a minimalist player approach. Like making a dinner with only a microwave. Things become really simple, no one's going to be impressed, but yeah, everything will get cooked. With so few mechanics to play with, it just feels like a game from 20 years ago, or more. Now, I have been really harsh on this game. I have. So let me take a minute to point out some of the things that work in its favor. It's a worthy addition to the Ubisoft library as far as world building goes. It's worth mentioning again, it's beautiful. And for making me feel like I'm in a Star Wars world, it's a slam dunk. While I hate everything about flight and space combat, I love the design of the Trailblazer. For a small freighter, it's a good-looking ship that fits in the Star Wars universe. I love how Kay stumbles forward when she drops from a little too high up, and how she holsters her blaster. Taking down Imperial bases was probably the high point of the game for me. The base maps are well designed, with 2 to 4 approaches to every problem or location, plus some opportunities to use the environment against troopers. You can pet the dog, or rather the dewback, Nix, a henku, and scurriers. I like using the electro binoculars to mark enemies, even if they don't work through glass, and using them also used to make Kay drop her found weapon. I enjoyed having to raid a camp of death troopers to clear Kay of a level 6 wanted state, but if Kay dies, the wanted state reverts to 0 anyway. Less great. Also, the number one reason to clear your wanted status isn't so you can get around without being shot at. It's to stop the incessant comm chatter about Kay's wanted status.
All units, there is a fugitive in the area. We have reported a criminal in your sector. We've got word there's a dangerous fugitive near you. Take her down as fast as you can.
As far as stealth goes, the fast talk mechanic was clever. Here, if you fumble your stealth and are spotted, there is a learnable QuickTime event.
Hey, you!
This ain't right.
That, if triggered, will allow Kay to stall for time while you ready the stun setting on her blaster and silence the squealer. Not so useful if the stun is on cooldown, but if you're close enough, you can also beat him up without making noise. If running, Kay can slide to a climbable ledge and will immediately take the climbing position. I really like that. It doesn't work on ladders. The leveling system is truly innovative, where Kay gains skills not from a skill tree after grinding for XP, but from meeting specialists and completing challenges, thereby earning her skills. Love it. I enjoy the data spike minigame of having to perfectly reproduce a pattern of clicks. Not easy sometimes, but many were too easy. I should have increased the difficulty of those in the settings. Not a fan of the slicing game, which is too easy and doesn't require any skill. I have never had a game tell me where my photo mode captures are saved before. I've always had to go to the internet. Massive kudos there. Getting arrested or killed by the Empire costs a lot of credits, but I appreciate that I can get them back by hacking Imperial terminals.
Showtime, Nix.
Using Nix as a distraction is just a new flavor of throwing a rock. But using Nix to open doors from range
Get that blaster.
and fetch scrap, health, grenades, and guns? while Kay stays in cover? That's new, and I thought it was great. Not great, however, when trying to send Nix to distract guards to look behind them, and the reticle keeps snapping to the guards for Nix to attack them, making it impossible to send Nix behind them. The speeder bike is disappointing for a ton of reasons, but it does have a speed burst and a bunny hop. That's a little better, but the best is the drift turn, one of the few player executable speeder maneuvers, and a great way to dink around while Kay's adrenaline builds up. Which still sucks. And last but not least, the sabacc game is excellent, especially the ability to cheat by having Nix peek at your opponent's cards, turning the game of chance and luck into a game of strategy. A+ on sabacc. But compare all those positives with the list of things you can't do. Can't pick up most found guns. Can't hold on to found guns. Can't fight or shoot in certain areas. Can't change blaster submodes during gameplay. Can't change blaster submodes in combat. Can't use found vehicles. Can't destroy an ATST or commandeer one. Can't shoot from your speeder. Can't use your speeder here. Can't run people over. Can't leave the quest area. Can't climb pretty much anything. Can't mark enemies through glass. Can't look behind when rappelling or ascending. Can't jump over some knee-high walls. If you want to sell millions of copies of a game in the first month, you need to make a game that people want to talk about.
How did you solve that situation?
Really? You can do that?
I did something totally different.
They actually let me do that.
Blew my mind.
That's the game you need to make. Star Wars Outlaws is not a bad game. Anyone who says so is being disingenuous. It's competent. I experienced only minor bugs. It comes across as a realized version of what the game was outlined to be. It's not a question of is this game good or bad. It's a question of is this game fun enough to warrant the $70 minimum price tag? It certainly looks like an expensive game. I just don't think it plays like an expensive game. I didn't get $70 worth of enjoyment out of it. And frankly, even if you gave it to me, considering the 78 hours I spent playing it, there's probably a fair few games out there that would have been a funner use of that time. So I wonder, why build such an expensive game with so many limitations? Did they not have the budget or a big enough team? Did they not have enough time? Were they riding the Star Wars coattails instead of innovating? Did they just lack the imagination to make a truly creative game? I don't mean developer creativity, I mean a game where the player can be creative. My suspicion is they deliberately made the game simple in an attempt to appeal to a broad spectrum of players. Don't want to scare anyone away with complexity. If true, it validates the slogan found on Arrowhead Studios' front page. A game for everyone is a game for no one. It just feels like they developed the story, setting, and characters first and then went, oh wait, but how's it going to play? I'm not saying that's the case, but it feels like it. If they sat down and discussed, what will the speeder do? On day one, I doubt anyone would have raised their hand and suggested, oh, how about you can't shoot from your speeder? How about the ship can only fire forward? Oh, how about you can't use most guns and the ones you can use are always dropped? How about none of the vehicles are drivable? And that's why games should develop with the mechanics in mind first, and not whether you'll do a quest for Jabba the Hutt. When you say a game has a grappling hook, I should be able to do all the things I think a grappling hook should do, and then you need to think of a couple more that I didn't think of. When you say a game has guns in it, I should be able to do all the things I think I should be able to do with guns. And then you need to think of a couple more that I didn't think of. When you say a game has vehicles in it, when you say a game has spaceships in it, when you say a game has Star Wars in it, I should be able to do all the things I would expect to do in a Star Wars game. And then you need to think of a few more that I didn't. Thanks for watching.